Welcome back to my workshop and welcome back to my garage. What we're going to be doing in today's video is a DIY pedal kit from Catlinbread. This is from their Night School series, and right now I think it's up to 5 pedals that they have total. This one was the first one they released, and it's the Night School Fuzz. This is a relatively straightforward pedal to build, and that's why I wanted to start with this one. I'm going to be doing a full series on all the Night School pedals, so that's going to be fun. So I'm looking forward to that. One nice thing about this Fuzz pedal is it's going to have a dial on it that's going to let you simulate the battery draining. A lot of people really like that sound when it comes to a fuzz because it does change the way the fuzz operates. So let's take a look at how the thing was boxed up and how it received it, and we'll go from there. This video is not sponsored in any way. I purchased this kit out of my own curiosity and just decided to do it on the channel. So I hope you enjoy what's happening with that. Please, if you like what I'm doing, click like, click subscribe. I really enjoy building pedals. This is probably about my 10th or 11th pedal that I've built. And I'll show you some of the tools that I use and some of the things that, might be handy for you to have. If you're just doing a one-off pedal, it's not necessary, but if you're doing multiple pedals, it's kind of nice to have some of the tools and equipment. So let's go ahead and take a look at the inventory and see how this thing was boxed up and what we get with it, and we'll get ready to start the build. So it comes in a normal Catlinbread box. You wouldn't know the difference between this box and anything else delivered by them. You got a couple stickers, which were kind of nice. Nothing else in the box. It does come wrapped up in this nice bag, so that's good. It comes pre-painted and pre-finished, which is a really nice feature for the Catlinbread pedals. This one, I really like the layout of it, the Night School Fuzz. So let's go ahead and pop this open and see what we got. And we're going to do a full inventory on this, but we've got our input and output jacks. We got our foot switch. We got the dials for the top. We got the power port. We've got the potentiometers along with some wires and some tape. We got our screws. We have our PCB. Here's our resistors and all our caps and capacitors in this bag here. So it looks like we have everything we need to get this thing assembled. We have some rubber bands here. We have our wire to wire the switches. This is nice. The wires are pre-cut. This does not come with directions to it. What you have to do is you have to go to the website to download the directions. And if you go to the Catlinbread website, you can just download the directions for the Night School Fuzz. So what I've done is I've went ahead and got everything out, so we did a good inventory on the kit. So we've got our PCB. This has the ratings for all the different things that you're going to be plugging into it on here. It is a nice PCB. It's got Catlinbread branded, so that looks really good. We've got our knobs. We've got our resistor here, or a transistor. When you install a transistor, there is a proper way to put it in, positive, negative, and I'll show you that when we get there. We've got 2 diodes. Again, the diodes are specific on what they go in, positive to negative. We've got our single diode here, which is again going to be positive and negative. We've got our resistors. Resistors, it doesn't matter which way you put them in. They're the same both ways. Resistors are color-coded. So you can, and this one does give the color codes. A little bit hard to see at times. So what I want to do is I want to show you a good way to just quickly check to make sure you've got the right resistor. You just need a good multimeter. And I put this one on auto select. And I've already went through and checked all these, so I'm not going to go through and check them all again. But I'll just give you an example. These 2 resistors right here, these are 1.8K resistors. I need 2 of them. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and use my multimeter and just go on both sides of the resistor. And you can see that comes in at 1.75. It's a 1.8K resistor. They're never going to read exactly right. There's a variance that they're allowed to have, but you can see that one right there. Let's pull up another one real quick. Let's do the other one, just make sure I got the right one here. Again, 1.75 for that one. This one is supposed to be a 2.2K resistor. And I've got 2.16, which is right in the pocket for that. And let me just show you, I'll turn this around and I'll show you that there's absolutely no difference in the way it comes about. So when you do resistors, it doesn't matter which way you put them in. The first thing it tells us to do is insert the resistors into their indicated positions. And that's where having them laid out here on the paper after I did the inventory is really going to help with that point. Because what you're going to do is, and it tells you here the color codes for the resistors here in the instructions, gives the color codes for each resistor. What we need to do is we just need to look, and our resistors are going to go along this line right here. So we just need to look and see which one is which for our resistors. So the first one we're going to put in is the 150K resistor. Very simple when you do this. What I like to do is I just bend it right at the resistor. Looks like that prior to going into the board. Push it down in there and then bend the feet outboard. What that's going to do is that's going to keep that transistor locked into, or that resistor locked into that spot. So we're going to go ahead and populate that with all the resistors. Next one is the 2.2K resistor. And to give it that professional look, you want to try and keep everything about the same height when you're populating the board. You see that, how I've got those two in there right now. Next one is the 560K. Next one is 18K. Next is a 1.8K. Next one is a 10K. A 560K. A 1.8K. So there we have all our resistors on the board. Turn it over, you can see how I've got the legs spread out. What we're going to do now is we're going to get ready to solder these. We'll put this, and once we get them soldered, then we'll clip off the excess leads. So what I've got here, this is actually a PCB stand. I got this from StewMac. I can put the link in the description below for where I got this from. It's a really good tool for doing that because this swivels. So right now I can swivel it up, I can check the top of my board, I can bring it back around, and now it's held very sturdily to go ahead and do the soldering. I've got my solder gun set to 750. I'm using a pencil tip point on my solder gun, and I'm using Kester solder. So basically what you do, touch it down there for a couple seconds. And you want to let it sit for a little bit and then get that solder to wick down in the hole. It's important to have your soldering iron set to the right temperature when you're getting ready to solder, because if you set it too low, then you're going to have to leave the solder gun on the piece you're soldering for a long time, and that's going to allow it to transfer heat more. If you have it set to the right temperature, and 750 I find is about the right temperature for most stuff that I solder, it heats up the component in such a time and lets you get the solder in there without damaging the board, because you can melt these if you leave it on for too long. And then I just go through and I pop these back up and snip them off. So I've got all of the resistors in and all trimmed. The next thing to do is insert the diodes. Now there's 3 diodes on this, and what you want to do, diodes have a positive and negative. This diode here is going to go in this spot here, and you can see if that focuses, there's a little stripe right at the end of that picture on that one, and there's a gray stripe on the end of this diode. So that tells me that I want to line those stripes up. So let's go ahead and get our 3 diodes put in. We'll get those soldered. And there's my diodes installed, and I'm just double checking to make sure the lines line up with where they're at. Let's go ahead and get these soldered. All right, go ahead and clip these loose. All right, so here we have it. The diodes are now soldered onto the board. So the next thing we want to do is do our capacitors. So as we put these in, they also are identified. They do not have a left and a right or positive and negative. You can put them in either way. So again, we'll spread the legs out. We've got the capacitor in there, and we'll go ahead and solder these in place. Trim the ends off these. And there we go. Our capacitors are secured. Okay, we do have a few more capacitors to put in. We have our two 100s and our 22. So our 100s are the square ones. So one goes here. These I always like to put paste in the same way so I can read the numbers. And then our 22 goes right here. Okay, so there's our three capacitors installed right here. We're going to go ahead and get those soldered in. And there we have these three capacitors soldered in. So the next capacitor we want to install is the electrolytic capacitor. This one, it does make a difference if it's left or right. So on the board, you've got the indication where it's going to go. And that's right here in the center. The positive lead, or the positive one, is the square grommet, and it's got a plus sign there, and the negative one is the round grommet. Normally the leads are different lengths. Let's see if we get this to focus. And the shorter leg would be negative, but these, for some reason, the legs are exactly the same. Another way to tell which one is which is this one's got the stripe going down the side, and that's actually a negative sign going down the side of that. So that's telling me that this is the negative leg. So when we put that in, got it in there with the stripe on the negative lead. We're going to go ahead and bend these over, and we're going to get them soldered in place. And there we have that capacitor installed. We've got the two transistors. We're going to go ahead and put those on. And these go a certain way. This transistor, you can see, is flat on one side. And the board has the picture of the flat one there. So you'll have to spread the legs out a little bit on these to get into all three holes. We got those bent over like that. And we're going to go ahead and put this transistor in as well. The legs are actually kind of in a stagger pattern, which aligns with the picture on the board here. You'll also see a small tab right here on the side of this, and that tab is shown on the picture here so that you can make sure you got the proper alignment when you're putting this in. There we go. See that put in? Go ahead and spread these out. We'll get this thing soldered up. So what I'm going to be soldering on now is the power jack, the ground spring, and the foot switch. The one thing you want to make sure on the foot switch, it says to make sure that these lugs are parallel with the bottom of the board. So as I push that on there, you can see that they are parallel with the bottom of the board rather than perpendicular. So I'm going to go ahead and get these all soldered on. I'm going to solder the lugs on the switch now. I just take on these, because they are shorter, it's a little harder to make them stay. I just take a screwdriver and bend them over. Let's go ahead and get these soldered up. So I've got my 6 connections here on each switch. So I did a little work off camera. And the reason why is my camera keeps dying here in the heat in Arizona. It's about 111 today. So the internal temperature on my camera keeps going up. So what I've done is I've taken my 3 potentiometers and I've soldered the wires onto the lugs. Okay. The next thing to do is now install these on the board. So to install these, they're going to be installed facing up. And you want to pay attention to the value of the pots. This one is a B100K. So that one's going to go here on this one, and the arrow on the board, I don't know if you can see that or not. Let's bring this in closer, see if we can see what's going on here. If you see the arrow on the board, that one's facing up, these two are facing down. So you want to align these lugs to where they're, like this one is a B100K, so that one goes here, and the lugs, that arrow's pointing this way, so that's the way I want the lugs to go in. So I want to line up my 3 wires, and I'm going to solder these in place. So as you can see, got that soldered in. The lug's pointing in the right direction. It is my B100K pot. And I've got good solder coming through the back sides. So I'm going to do the exact same thing to this other one. This one's an A100K pot. So this is one of my A100s. I actually have 2 of the A100Ks. So the next 2 pots just go into this position. You want to be careful going in from the top of the board like I'm doing right now, because it's very easy to let the side of your iron hit one of your control pots or one of the capacitors that's there. All right, so here's what we have. We have all 3 of our pots installed in the right positions. Just verify A100, A100, B100. Lugs are pointing in the right direction on all of these. So now it's a simple matter of going ahead and sticking this in the enclosure. It gave me these yellow bands with these. The only thing I can think of it's for is to just put around the ends of the switches here to just insulate where I'd soldered the wires on. So, and as you can see, I just kind of wrap those around the lugs. That way it kind of seals everything off. And now it's just time to put everything in the enclosure. Here we have the enclosure in. All right, so my camera keeps shutting off, so I'm going to do this real quick. I went ahead and tightened everything down. Everything's soldered up, everything's nice, there's nothing touching anything else. I've test fitted it. The back sits on here without touching any of this stuff, which is perfect. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead, put the back cover on, and we'll be ready to look at ops checking this bad boy and see what it sounds like. So it's time to do an ops check on the Fuzz pedal. Really fun build. I think you're going to like the way it sounds. I've been playing with it for a little while now, and I'm really liking the way it sounds. Basically the rig I'm running my R9 through my JCM 800 into a Captor X torpedo, and that's just simulating a 4x12 cabinet going into a Zoom recorder. You're also going to hear some of the room noise as well from the mics. So just to give you a reference, here's my clean signal. And then what we're going to do is go through a few settings with the Fuzz and kind of see what it's got. Here's the setting I like the most. It's got a good amount of crunch to it with that little bit of fuzz to it. Really like the way it is. So let's go ahead and check it out. So let's go ahead and turn the gain down a little bit and give you an idea of what it's going to sound like. This is with the gain at about noon. Bring it down a little bit more. Put it about 9 o'clock. This is your bias knob, and what this is it ranges between 4 volts and 9 volts of DC power. So right now I've got it set at about 10. Let's crank it up to about noon, see what kind of sound we get. Kind of thickens up that fuzz just a little bit. Let's bring it up to about 3 o'clock position. And here we really get into some serious clipping. So we'll bring that back down a little bit. So you notice we start to get a little bit more clipping there. We get a little bit more octave overtone. Let's bring this back down to about noon. Let's bring our gain up to about noon. It's got a really nice saturated sound to it right there. Let's go ahead and bring our gain up a little bit more to about 3. You can hear a little bit more in there. Let's bring it all the way up to max gain now. Now what we're going to do, let's go ahead and with the gain on max, let's go ahead and roll down our bias now to about 4, or give it all the way down to the bottom. This is what it's going to be like with like 4 amps. It's a really nice distortion sound there. Bring it back up now. We'll start cranking it up. We'll bring it up. We'll bring it up to about the 9 o'clock position. You can hear that fuzz kicking in a lot more there. Let's go ahead and bring it up to noon again. Starts to get real fuzzy at that point. A lot of hair on it. Let's bring it up to about the 2 o'clock position. You can really start to get into clipping now. And if you really want to bank it, you have it on max gain, crank it up to full bias. You get kind of a really crazy sound out of it there. Let's bring it back down to about 1 o'clock. That seems to be the sweet spot here. Still getting those overtones. But again, my favorite spot is pretty much this setting right here. You still get that nice fuzz sound to it. Let's bring it up to the neck pickup and see what we get. So there you have it. That's the Catlinbread Night School DIY fuzz pedal. Really nice pedal to build. Really enjoyed building this pedal. It sounds great. It's very quiet. You still get some nice clarity.